Hi everyone, my name is Matt Wright. Thanks for staying this late. My talk today is going to be about deep learning for super-resolution electron microscopy. So this is a joint work between us in computational biosciences and the National Center for Electron Microscopy over on the other side of the hill. What we're looking at here in the top left corner of this slide is basically what an electron microscope looks like. This is a PR photo, so I don't think they actually get down in there and look at things through the microscope like that. But what happens is that at the top of the picture, there's the electron gun that shoots electrons down through the sample, and those get collected by the chip that's zoomed in and on the bottom left. The chip is made up of individual pixels. These pixels detect electrons going through them. The electrons, interact with the silicon in the pixels and shear off ionization electrons that then bounce around and get collected by charge collectors. And what we see on the right is a blown up picture of what maybe a snapshot from one of these chips might look like. You can see that this is a chip with, I think, 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. And there are a few little dots. Those aren't like dirt on the screen. Those are the electrons actually appearing. Up at the top right, we see a big blob of a big concentration of electrons. And so this is the kind of thing that electron microscopes work with. And the way that people actually think about what the electron microscope sees is with very simple peak finding algorithms. So they just take a look at this image, find the local peaks, say, aha, those are the electrons, and they count up the electrons. What this project is doing is trying to bring modern machine learning to this electron counting, electron detection procedure for these pixel images. In particular, what I'm working on is a unified electron detection neural network system to simultaneously estimate going from the far left, the position. So this is showing a position reconstruction of with an uncertainty quantification. So in this picture, the blue dot represents the true electron position for this simulated electron on these pixels. The orange dot is a center of mass if we just count up the electron charge. It's not just the single pixel that gets illuminated by the electrons. There's multiple scattering. The ionization electrons can jump between pixels. So you end up seeing something like a blob. The center of mass of the blob is an estimate for where the actual incidence point of the electron is. But what we can see here is that the blue point, which is an example of the neural network's prediction, gives a better estimate and with uncertainty quantification of where the point is. The other derivative of this neural network is segmentation. So if we have overlapping strikes in the middle image, we want to be able to do an instance segmentation using computer vision instance segmentation methods to be able to tell whether this was one big electron or two small electrons, as well as assigning the charge deposition to each electron. And on the far right is another item that we're looking at, which is being able to estimate the statistical distribution of the energy deposition. We know what the energy deposition of each individual electron on the silicon wafer is going to look like from particle physics theory. It's going to follow a distribution like this, so we're able to estimate that from the data. So this is what the neural network actually looks like. This is the required schematic big diagram of the neural network. Going again from the bottom left, take the input image, which is the very sparse image of pixels that I showed. It goes through the sparsification routine. This is just a simple thresholding because, as I mentioned, this is I'm dealing with 4,000 by 4,000 images. I don't want to downsample because I'm throwing away data, and this is very big for CNNs. So what we use is a sparsity-aware CNN backbone, which is shown in the compressor thing there. This is an implementation of a typical off-the-shelf neural network, such as a ResNet or a convex network that uses sparsity-aware kernels, so it doesn't multiply zeros together. That outputs a sequence of multi-scale feature maps following the traditional neural network paradigm. We have low spatial resolution and high feature resolution to low spatial resolution to high spatial resolution and low feature resolution. That then goes into the transformer decoder, which does the bulk of the heavy lifting. Basically, the way this works is that we start out with a series of query vectors. These query vectors are the transformer learns to associate each query vector with one of the electrons that are in the input image. Like that's what we trained it to do. We trained it to do a bipartite matching algorithm to associate a query, each of these queries with one of the electrons, one of the instances of electrons in the image. Once we have that, for each query vector, we now have a feature embedding relating to each individual electron, and we can use we can take the output of that to decode the positions, the soft mask that I was talking about, as well as the energy distribution computed from the soft mask and the assignment of energy of the pixels. So what I'm showing in the bottom loop is that the distribution matching loss will be the distribution that we get of the energies gets fed into a, that goes back to, what I'm showing in this slide is this goes back to fed into making the thresholding, since we know that things below this peak here are going to just be noise. So preliminary results. So what I'm showing here is a violin plot showing the performance of the position localization versus just adding up the center of mass for each chart for each electron. So this is what I'm showing here is that the blue plots show the distribution and the median of position reconstruction error in terms of microns, and the orange plots, the orange violins, show the same thing for the neural network. What's important the important takeaway here is that even though we're dealing, with very tiny little bitty pixels with not much apparent information, the neural network is able to outperform the naive center of mass reconstruction by a little bit, and is particularly on noisier data. Here's some example figures of what the actual position reconstruction and uncertainty quantification looks like. So again, this is the same kind of picture I showed earlier, where the blue dot is the true incidence point of the electron, the green dot is the neural network's estimate, and the orange dot is what we would get if we just summed up the charge and took a center of mass calculation. What's interesting here and what's appealing from these results is that on the left, we see one single pixel getting light up really brightly, a few pixels with some smaller being lit up, and it looks like the center of mass, does give a good estimate of where the electron actually hit. And accordingly, the uncertainty contours, I'm showing 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations of a Gaussian distribution of where the neural network thinks the electron is, are fairly small and fairly tight. Whereas on the right, where there's more noise, more ambiguity perhaps in where the electron actually hit, the uncertainty contours are a bit larger. So what I talked about with the distribution thing is that that's all fine and well on simulated data, but for real data, we don't have the true locations of the position. So what we are using instead is a distribution matching loss, where we ensure that the segmentation of individual electrons and the assignment of charge deposition to individual electrons results in a distribution of energy such that it fits what we know will appear from the statistical theory. And this lets us generalize from simulated to real data. Ongoing work, my ongoing work is generalizing the position uncertainty from the Gaussian distribution to a more arbitrary distribution. The Gaussian distribution isn't always the best distribution because, in particular, we're dealing not with a continuous surface, but with discrete pixels, testing on higher occupancy data, as well as developing extensions for another use of electron microscopes called electron energy loss spectroscopy, or EELS. Thank you.